We'll dive in. It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Thanks a lot, Joe. It is lovely, lovely to see you and have this conversation with you.
I'm looking forward to it. Let's begin our journey with officially today, 5 years ago, believe it or not, this pandemic really began in earnest globally. How much of living through that time, which threw so many things emotionally and spiritually into this unknown realm, how much of living through that time period has affected your life and what you do today?
Oh, lots. I think that was shifting a lot in my world if I look back at that. And I think that was a global experience for all of us. That was. So for me at the time, and a lot of marriages broke down at that time as well. My son was little. He was about 3.5, and I was trying to co-live with his dad. We had decided that we will separate, and we did not, I mean, we knew that would happen. We were just trying to live together, and then COVID happened and lockdown happened as well. And you put a little child in the mix with that. So
Yeah.
you're sort of trying to act normal
Yeah.
in front of him. Um, but basically, we just didn't get along.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a very good, deep, sobering time. It was also a time for me when I just moved to Perth in Western Australia. So everything was new.
Yeah.
Like the city was new. It was really a realization that, oh, I'm on my own. And how will I do this as a mom? I think, maybe perhaps it's come up because there are parents who would be listening to it. They either need to live in a co-parenting relationship later on, or they're thinking about it and so on. But I had all those questions going in my head. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing with my son? So, COVID, in that sense, as a blessing, it gave a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe the harder part was that I really had to think about it because that was the situation. You couldn't run away.
Yeah. 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 And I think that was kind of the existential moment or crisis for a lot of people. They came to this fork in the road and decided there was just this microscope that went over our lives. And what are we doing? How are we going to live the rest of our lives? And when you're at an advanced age, you realize you don't have as much time. So what are you going to do with the rest of the time? Who are you going to be with? Those kinds of things.
Totally. And like very deep existential questions. And I think it was good that that happened because I could take the time. Luckily, by that time, I was probably about 2-ish years into meditation, into the sort of the modalities that I do. So I had a lot of time to really work through it, really look at myself, also look at how was I going to deal or have a relationship with my son's dad and not make it as disharmonious for my son or make it as nice and as loving as possible. But it was definitely a good time to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I think what it did for a lot of people was, it brought out a lot of the darkness. In general, we saw within the homes as well.
Yeah.
We saw outside in the countries as well, playing very much at a global level where all the countries acted in their own way, sometimes mandating vaccines, sometimes mandating lockdowns, sometimes making shifts and spirals around what they were doing, and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
But for me personally, there were lots of takeaways, lots of good things. I really look at that time and I think of that as a shedding time, like shedding the older layers
Yeah.
and coming into what is truly you. So, shedding, for example, a lot of the shedding I did was when all of this started, I would look at COVID numbers every day and what is happening, and so many people died and so on. I did that for a little while. Like, it is not really serving me. It's only making me
Yeah.
very crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I decided, okay, I'm not going to do this. And for me personally, it was also a break from news as such, just mentally disconnecting. So it's not that I don't go on news at all, but I have, like, I'll take it and I just don't like deep dive too much into it. I won't read too much into it. Over the years, I've also learned to just separate my space energetically. But I think that was the year where I was learning to understand what is my boundary. Almost the whole world was doing it with me. Everybody was understanding that, and I was understanding my new boundary
Yeah.
and what it was. Did I need one? Where did I need it? Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Let's get into what you do on a daily basis and to boil that down to something that everybody understands as a coach. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. They're third graders. It's career day. One of the kids in the back of the room is curious and is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I play with energy. So energy is all around us.
Yeah,
Energy is the energy of playing, energy that you feel with your friends. Energy is, when you're watching TV, when you feel excited about something, when you feel sad. Maybe you have a good time with someone, and that is energy. So you're like, hey, I'm really excited. And then the other times when you're not really happy, and maybe you lost a match or something else happened that didn't feel so good. And so you're unhappy about that. So I teach people how to play with energy and how to shift it so that they can have it the way that they want. The
yeah,
beautiful thing with that is that when you shift energy, you can shift the energy of anything.
yeah,
Let's say you want a friend to really play with you and do something with you. You can't really shift the friend as such, but you can shift the energy so that even if there is a bully and he says something to you, that you don't get too affected by it, and the bully sort of just, walks um, sort of around you and doesn't bother you as much.
yeah,
So you would be able to manipulate the energy that way. That's what I do. That if you have some bad people, some bad things that you don't like, you can just shift them in a way so that you are not too bothered with them.
yeah. So let me ask you this. What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream life?
Oh, third grade. Well, that is the funny thing. I don't think I was ever allowed to dream like that. Like
Yeah,
at that age, the obvious answer that comes is that I was supposed to be a doctor. And that was my dream as well. But
yeah,
was it my dream? Never. It was just a dream that I'd been told mm, and- ever since. I don't even know what age. So I just grew up thinking that I was supposed to be a doctor.
yeah,
Thank God I didn't become one.
yeah, yeah.
And for a long time, that is all that I wanted to do.
So talk to me a little bit about some of these foundational elements of you helping people with energy. What was it early on in your life that provided you this framework, the seeds that were planted, that has evolved into your work and your mission?
Oh, well, for the longest time, mm, there was nothing like actually even just moving into energy coaching. That is more almost by accident. I know I was chosen for it. So what had happened was, so I'm an engineer, I'm an MBA professional by background. I became an engineer because, if you don't become a doctor in India, the other cool thing to do, or the other only possible thing to do is you become an engineer. Like at least you do that. That's
Yeah,
the family that I came from.
yeah,
So I became an engineer. And I did 4 years and I was like, oh my God, I don't like it at all. And so then as I started working as an engineer, I just hated the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, now let me just do something which I like and something that my family will approve of. So I thought, okay, MBA actually sounded really, really good to me. That was something that I picked up. I wanted to become a business owner. I always had this that I wanted to make a positive impact. So
yeah,
that was the basis. That's what I did. And so for a long time, my MBA was really good. I was working as a very successful project manager. I was leading multi-million dollar projects across the world. Worked in Europe, I've worked in Australia for some really big companies. So all of that on the outside, you'd look at it and you'd go like, life is great
yeah,
because my holidays were great. The pictures were, picture perfect, as in like the happy family life is there. I just wasn't too happy inside.
yeah,
Like my marriage wasn't going really well. Things that I wanted to do, I was not being able to do them. I was feeling very disengaged, disconnected.
yeah,
And that time I was pregnant with my daughter. So even before that, I did actually try to meditate because I was like, well, my life's not going well. I was not diagnosed as a depressed person, but I definitely was because I would wake up in the morning and I would just cry. And I would not even know why I was crying, but I would cry so much. And it was not like a one-off thing, it was a very consistent thing, sadly, even during my pregnancy. And then one day when I was pregnant with my daughter, so she would have been 31 weeks, and I woke up and I just never felt her. So we went to the doctor. She did not have any heartbeat, and I had to give birth to a stillborn. And that shifted the world. So if I had run away from my pain before this, there was no running away now
Yeah,
because there were lots of things. Like one of the things that really, really was just, killing me inside was that I really wanted to connect with my daughter. I'd lost my daughter. I really wanted to say, hey, I love you. I wanted to tell her that, I'm sorry I was crying while you were with me, but doesn't mean that I didn't want you in my life. Like I had all sorts of guilt and everything that I wanted to have a conversation with her. So that is where I really started looking at other modalities because just the other normal ways or the scientific ways, or let's say the mindset shifts, the therapies, they were not working for me. I just needed something a lot deeper. And then that's how gradually I got into energy healing. And so that's how the world started shifting for me. But with energy healing, what we do is we start peeling back the layers and we start looking at the root causes of things. What I discovered, and I could connect with my daughter a little bit differently to how you and I are doing because I'm looking at your face and I can see you on the screen and
yeah,
it's different.
yeah,
Whereas with somebody in the spirit, you feel them, you get the words from them. It's a little different, but when you get used to it, I also think, well, it has its own beauty in a
yeah,
different way. Because
yeah,
I don't have to dial, I don't have to connect, I don't have to call on the phone. She's just there whenever
yeah,
I need it. That presence is there.
yeah,
So I got to connect with her, and I realized that as shocking it seems on the outside in the physical world that I lost her, my daughter, I had a soul contract with her. My
yeah,
contract was that if I was making a mess of my life, if I was really not doing in my life what I was supposed to do, if I was just wasting my life, that she should come and kick me
yeah,
back into shape again. And
yeah.
that's literally what she did. So, um, but also it was good. Like I look at my life before and after, and really I'm awake. I don't know what I was doing in my life. I really would not have been such a joy as a mom, just as a human being to other people around me as well. And it's so much better like this.
On paper, this it's devastating, and even you describing what happened. But at the end of the day, as we evolve and as we take everything in with our life experiences, things become gifts. And it's wild how the human experience can transform something like that into a connection that is actually a lifesaver for you. You know, in a lot of ways, you saved and incubated that soul and it didn't materialize the way that we want as human beings, but in a whole other way, it was a gift that was given to you to help you on your
Oh,
journey.
Oh, totally. Totally. I think she is my biggest blessing and she continues to be because for a lot of light, for a lot of the things that I want to do. So that's how energy healing came in as well. So in the beginning, when I started this, it wasn't more to do anything for anyone. Like I wasn't even in that state.
Yeah,
When you're so depressed or when you're so low on grief, you're not. I was just thinking every day surviving,
yeah,
every day just crossing another day. And I had my son at the time. He was about 2.5. So it's an age where you can't tell a child, like, this is what has happened, which is also good. Hindsight, if I look at everything, it was very good because he wasn't engulfed by grief. And he would just look at me and he would go like, why is mommy crying? And he just give me a toy, like, come play with this. In a simple world,
yeah,
that is it. Like just
Yeah.
hold on to a toy. You don't want this one, take the other one
Uh-huh.
and just get happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I was mourning one child or the loss of one, I was looking at this other child who was a gift as well. And I was looking, well, I'm mourning the loss of life. And here this child is who is showing me life and the joy every day. How do you smile? How do you be happy? Like he needs nothing more than a toy
Yeah.
or something else, but he knows how to be happy.
Yeah.
And so, how can I complain about one thing and then just totally ignore what I've got in front of me?
Yeah.
So, that was the shift and how it started happening. So, a lot of it, what I did earlier was more to just heal me. It wasn't for a very long time. It wasn't about looking at the world and so on. I just kept doing all these modalities because as I kept peeling more inside me, I just started realizing how much I was carrying and how much pain I was carrying. So even when I did like a 2 years teaching program. And I did not do it to become a meditation teacher or to help anyone with clairvoyance or looking at things. No, I was just doing it because my life was getting better. I was generally more peaceful, long term happy. For me, I was manifesting better jobs, better opportunities more easily. So I just kept doing this thing because the more I healed in, it resulted on the outside. And then it just happened that during my meditations, I started getting visions. This is what I have to do. And I really tried ignoring it for a long time. But then I have other friends who were all like this. And when they would look at me, they would tell me the same thing and became at one point so strong. And I was like, okay, I just cannot ignore this anymore. And I've got to step into it. Because I did do it as a hobby. And I thought, okay, this will shut up. Like this voice will shut up. But it just kept happening. And I started seeing the shifts that it was making for my clients, my students as well. And they're just really radical shifts. It's a different kind of joy. Like I'll explain, I'll give you a few examples. There's a little boy, he's 14 years old. So before my sessions with him, he was just very stressed. Um, and so he's from India, and when he would have his exams, he would be very stressed. He would even have some blackouts. He would faint before exams, and that's a little kid, I still think 14 is little,
Yeah.
or maybe I'm super old. But 2 sessions in, and when we could clear that out, and next time when his exams happened, he was okay, no blackouts, really able to be calm, be peaceful every day, became less anxious. And he also did very well in his exams. Now, I'm not saying doing well in exams is the metric to look at, but I mean, you don't want, if anyone can just have normal, peaceful lives without taking any other extra drugs or anything, that's a big win.
Yeah.
There's another client of mine, he used to be addicted to porn. Like he just had to watch porn multiple times a day during the days, even during work meetings and so on, just as a means of survival. And then 2, 3 sessions in, and he was able to clear the root cause of the energy
Yeah.
behind that. And then that just went away. Like that's a
Yeah.
sense of power.
Yeah.
So you've moved from almost powerlessness, submission to a sense of your own agency. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So it's those stories which still continue to inspire me,
Yeah.
which is why I get up and do this every day.
You've encapsulated so much here. We've run away with this time. So I want to ask you this. If anyone out there wants to hire you, they have any questions, they want to reach out, I think we've scratched the surface and probably piqued people's curiosity to delve further. How do they do that?
Okay, so I am available at Kanika Energy Coach. They can find me at Kanika, Kanika, Energy Coach on Instagram or on LinkedIn as well. And then my website is artoflifecenter.com. Center is CENTER.com. And once a month or so, I run a free energy healing session because I really just want to bring out these modalities to everyone. They're super easy. I teach them to my now 8-year-old kid, but I've sort of worked with him since he was 5 or 6. So it's really simple to
Yeah.
do. And and you'll see the shifts. You'll feel it instantaneously in that session. Join me for a live session. It's free, and we'll do it together. And we'll help you let go of the issues that you have.
So I think we've scratched the surface here. If you don't mind, can we reconvene at a later time? I want to delve in a little bit more. I mean, we live in very interesting times. We've kind of talked about what's going on in the world, and I just want to delve into your story a little bit more. So if we could reconvene, if this can be part one, I'd love to delve into. I didn't realize how voluminous this could be, because it's fascinating to me. Is there any way that we could do that down the line?
Oh, definitely. I'd
Okay.
love to be here again. Thanks a
Okay.
lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It was.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.